I've saved my progress as marginguide.ai, found inside the O8 type folder. So called, by the way, because I've drawn a single rectangle on the first page that will serve as my margin guides. In this exercise, we're going to establish this and the other guidelines inside of our new document. I'm going to start by going to the Layers panel, twirling open the Guides layer, and renaming this path Margins, like so that I have a sense for the purpose of each one of my guidelines. Then I'll click OK in order to accept that name. The next thing I want to do is draw a vertical guide that's the exact height of the page. I don't want it to stretch out into the pasteboard the way it would if I were to drag out a ruler guide. I just want it to be the height of the page and nothing more. So I'm going to create this guideline using the line tool. So I'll select the line segment tool, which I can also do by pressing the backslash key. And I'll drag from the top left corner of the page to the bottom left corner like so. And if I'm careful, Illustrator should go ahead and snap my line into exact alignment with the left-hand side of the artboard. And just to confirm that that's what I've done, I'll bring up the info palette, which you can get by pressing Control F8 or Command F8 on the Mac. And notice that my width value says 0 points, meaning the line is exactly straight up and down, no wavering. And the height value is 900 points, which is the exact height of this page. So that's great. Everything's working out fine. I'll go ahead and hide the info panel, and then I'll go up to the control panel and click on Transform in order to bring up the Transform panel. Notice currently the X value is 0 points. And what that means is that the horizontal location of this line is 0 points in from the left-hand side of the page. I'm going to switch that to 700, which of course is the entire width of the page, as you may recall, divided by, that is /2. So that we'll move midway in, and I'll press the Tab key. Illustrator goes ahead and does the math for me. 700 divided by 2 is 350 points, and we now have a vertical guide right through the center of the artboard. All right, that's great. Now I want to add one more vertical guide, and in order to understand this one, you need to see the final document. So I'm going to switch over to finalformattedlimerick.ai, also found inside the O8 type folder, and I'm going to press Control semicolon or Command semicolon on the Mac in order to bring up my guides. Notice right there that rectangle, which describes the margin guides, and then we also have a vertical guide through the center of the page. Then we've got this guideline right there. Notice this guide that's slightly in from the left-hand margin, right against the lines of the poem. And the idea is this: each one of the lines in the poem is flush left. That's the way you want them, of course, because that keeps the poetry nice and legible in the Western world. But when you do that, it means that you've got big gaps over here on the right-hand side. And if you don't do something to compensate for those big gaps, then the entire page is going to seem to list over to the left. And we want the page to seem more or less centered. A little left side heaviness is just fine. In fact, most people expect that. Studies show that it increases the legibility of the page, but too much is just bad design. So what I've done is I've just scooted these lines 24 points over to the right. That is 1/3 of an inch over to the right in order to help compensate for this right-hand emptiness. All right, so I'm going to switch back to my marginguide.ai file in progress, and I want to create a copy of this selected vertical guide that is 24 points in from that left-hand margin edge. Well, the left-hand margin edge is 100 points in, so we want to add 24 points to that. So I'll go up to the Transform panel once again. And notice that the X value is currently 350 points. I'm going to change this value to 100 plus 24. I could have done that math pretty easily. That's just 124, but still. And then I'm going to press Alt-Enter or Option-Return on the Mac. And what that does is it goes ahead and accepts that value. And by virtue of the fact that I had the Alt or Option key down, creates a copy of that line at the new location. All right, now let's take all three of these guides. Let's rename them first, actually. I'll rename this top guide, the one that's currently selected, V left, and then click OK. And I'll rename the next one down V center, just so I have a sense of what each one of these guidelines is doing. Then I'll grab my black arrow tool. I'll marquee all three of these guides in order to select them all. I'll press Control G or Command G on the Mac to group them, and I'll call the group Page 1 or something along those lines. Click OK. All right, the next step is to create a copy of this group in the central artboard, that is artboard number 2 inside of our document, and we will do exactly that in the next exercise.